you're listening to The Olive Tree with me, Julia Fisher, the programme that asks the question, what is God doing in Israel? Whilst in the ancient biblical city of Ashdod recently, I met Israel Pochtar. Born into a Jewish family in the Crimea, he came to Israel with his wife soon after they were married. At first, he worked in construction by day and in his spare time as a street evangelist based in Tel Aviv. So I asked him, why did he move to Ashdod?
Well, I had a supernatural encounter with God because it happened when I was living 10 years in Tel Aviv, congregation grown. We actually had, like by Israeli measures speaking, we had kind of local revival in Beit Emmanuel in this area. We have seen many salvations, growth, wonderful times. I was young. I think I'm still young, but I was much younger. And I was happy to do what I do, just to be associate pastor, to be street evangelist, building just congregation, building kingdom. It was a wonderful time. But right in the middle of, happy life, very fulfilling life, I went to Ashdod to visit a family. I led them to the Lord, and now it was my time to visit them. So I drive in my car, I pray in the Spirit, and I had a supernatural experience with God. Everything around me disappeared, and I saw a vision. I saw a big congregation, many Israelis worshiping Yeshua, and then many, many details like Bible school studies, youth conferences, and nations coming, lots of different details. But the main point was the large local congregation and like very active, lots of things happening. And by the end of the vision, I heard a voice, really like voice of God, and I don't know, was it physical voice, was it inner voice? It was loud and clear to me. Leave everything behind, move to Ashdod, start this congregation. Well, it changed my life. I came home and shared with my friends, with my pastor, with my family. God spoke to me. He leading us from Tel Aviv to Ashdod to start actually first Hebrew-speaking congregation in the city of Ashdod.
Because there was nothing here at that time. There were no other believers that you knew about. There was no congregation.
There were a couple congregations. It was one French congregation that doesn't exist today, and one Russian-speaking congregation, but no Hebrew-speaking congregations. And by vision, it was clear God sent me to specifically for Israelis. And today we are a diverse congregation. We have all kind of people, but main language of the congregation and culture is it's a Hebrew-speaking. So we had a couple believers, but yes, city of 250,000 people. We haven't had any Hebrew-speaking congregation. And, 75% of the city speak Hebrew only. So obviously there were a need, and later I discovered why God sent me to Ashdod. Few reasons, and one of them to establish first and still only Hebrew-speaking congregation in the city of Ashdod.
So what did your wife say when you told her you were moving to Ashdod?
Well, first she just cried. She didn't like the idea. Young families, they love Tel Aviv. We had 2 little kids, we've been happy with many young friends, lots of activities. And Ashdod also changes, and it's become kind of even nicer city today. But back then, it would be very big difference between Ashdod and Tel Aviv. So she just cried. But after a few days of prayer, she came to the point when she recognized that actually it's God. And then she said, yes, Lord. Crying again, yes, Lord.
So how do you go about starting a new work in a city like this from scratch, really?
I started to come to Ashdod once a week to pray here. We have a place called Jonah Hill. It's the highest natural point in Ashdod. So I will go to Jonah Hill to pray over the city. This hill have a city view. So I would pray for a city literally at least once a week or sometimes more. And God started to send people from different nations. I remember like from England, from Switzerland, from America, from different places. And they said, we heard about your vision. We want to come and pray for you. So pretty often I would come twice and 3 times a week with different friends, new friends, and different people who would support vision God gave me, first of all in prayers, and they would pray with us, they would pray with me. So it was a year of preparation in the spirit. And sometime in the middle, like 6 months later, like I knew I'm going to move to Ashdod a year later after the vision. So after 6 months, I started a home group. God kind of started to bring to me different people who were planning to move to Ashdod without connection to my vision, or been to Ashdod looking for some Hebrew-speaking community. So eventually, home studies started before congregation, and prayer. Once again, prayer, lots of prayers.
So just a few people. I mean, today you're much, much larger, but just a tiny, tiny seed in those days. Were you ever tempted to give up? Was there ever that feeling, is this really God?
No, I never had this temptation because vision I received was so strong, so clear and obvious. Now, coming thinking of all our history, first steps and next steps, the persecution we faced, all the challenges and difficulties, but I never had given up as an option. I think because of this vision, part of it, it's a vision God gave me. So now it's clear to me what God gave me, not just prophetic word, not just, kind of guiding me in the spirit, giving me feeling that it's time, but really open vision, really supernatural vision. Now I know why, because when I think of all the difficulties we faced in the process, so that's why probably I have never even option or never thinking of giving up. I've been tired time to time and, tired of all this pressure, but encouragement of Holy Spirit was enormous and it still is enormous. So it's really by the grace of God.
So clearly that was a very, very important part of this story because you have faced an enormous amount of persecution. The few people that you'd gathered around you presumably started like a home group.
Yes, we started as a home group with 3, 4, 5 people, growing home group. Then a couple of friends received same call. They knew God calling them to join me to start the congregation. So they would start coming with me praying and being in the home group. So eventually home group grew to about 10, 12 people before congregation started. And that was a base. When we started our first meeting in 2005, it was July 1st, 2005, we had about 30 people with few guests who came to support us, just to support New Beginning, but 20 who was part of congregation. So home groups and few people who've been saved in the process or joined me in the process. So we started congregation with 20 people.
Interesting you say that God had spoken to individuals and encouraged them to join you.
Yes, that was very encouraging for me because seeking the Lord and praying for beginning, for start of the congregation, I had many questions to God. Now, I have seen a vision, so that's a final destination, right? But I didn't know all the details and process and what God going to do. And actually, in the process of starting congregation, having devotion times and times with the Lord, God started to speak with me about also other congregations that we're going to plant from Ashdod and the international ministry. And it shocked me, really. And I had even more questions to God. How I'm going to do that? Who will invite me? Who will want to listen to me? You're 30 years old, young leader. And what about people to start new congregations? We need money. We need people for that. But God been very gracious to speak to my concerns and giving me words of encouragement, basically saying, I will give you all kind of resources. When you need wisdom, I will give you wisdom. When you need power of God, you will have power. When you need joy, you will receive joy. When you need people to accomplish vision, I will send you people. I will raise people and I will send you. And really God was faithful through all these years. And I've seen people being just added, supernaturally moved to Ashdod or moved to our ministry, and they will rising up within inside of congregation, just getting saved, growing in the Lord, and becoming leaders and fulfilling the vision.
Perhaps we could just talk about Ashdod, the city, for a few moments. Today it's a new city. I mean, biblically, there's been an Ashdod for centuries. But just describe what day-to-day life is like here in this city.
Well, like you said, Ashdod is ancient, biblical city and modern. It's obviously very modern because Ashdod only 57 years old city, like modern Ashdod. And of course, it's mentioned in the Bible, there's biblical history, and maybe later I can share with you some points about history and prophecies in the Bible about Ashdod. But day-to-day life, well, Ashdod is modern, beautiful city. Biggest parts of the city, it's very modern construction, tall buildings, very few private homes, mostly tall buildings, like a big city. City on the coast, so we have beautiful beaches. I think one of the best beaches in Israel. And majority of Israelis in Ashdod, they are Eastern Israelis, Moroccan Jews, Yemenite Jews, those who came from Muslim countries. I mean, not them, but probably their parents. Most of it, it's parents. It's a second and third generation of what we call in Israel Moroccan Jews and Yemenite Jews and even others, Tunisian Jews, but mostly Moroccan Jews. Other big part of a second large population in Ashdod, it's actually a Russian-speaking population. So we also have about over 50,000 Russian-speaking Israelis who live in Ashdod. And when I say Russian-speaking, obviously it's from all 16 countries when Russian was the international language, like Georgia and Armenia and Ukraine and Belarus and other countries. So we have over 50,000 people who speak Russian, French Jews, Ethiopian Jews, and then fractions of everyone.
And it's a big port as well. What sort of work do people do here?
Yeah, we have a big port. And Ashdod is still relatively close to Tel Aviv. So I have in my congregation high-tech people, IT people. They all drive into Tel Aviv every morning and coming back every night. And without traffic, it's just 30 minutes and you are in Tel Aviv. But I cannot say it's suburbs because it's really different cities, stands apart city. So it's a great location, very convenient location. Community in Ashdod, not that secular like in Tel Aviv. So most of the Israelis here in Ashdod, they are very family-oriented and pretty much traditional in Judaism. Now, we do have large and growing Orthodox community as well, but also just normal Israeli family in Ashdod would be just traditional practicing Judaism family.
You're also very close to Gaza. Has that had an enormous impact on life here?
Well, I don't know if we can say enormous impact or not, but yes, it is affecting our city because time to time we would have rockets from Gaza. Mostly it doesn't come as random out of blue. Mostly we know it's coming. It will be like military operations and we would be warned. And we had two really military conflicts with Gaza. And one of them, the second one was very tough. A few years ago we had 50 days of fire. And just my city of Ashdod, have received 300 missiles. 90% of them were intercepted, like literally 270 were intercepted in the air. So still we could see, fire, explosions, like a Star Wars or whatever. But 30 rockets fell down in the city. So people have been stressed to run to bomb shelters, to grab their kids, and moms needed to stay home. Schools and kindergartens were canceled because it was too dangerous to have them open. So that was tough. But it's like seasonal. But mostly, it's a beautiful, modern city, a safe city. We have very low crime. You can see after midnight little girls walking around. So it's a very peaceful city and great city to raise family.
You've been listening to Israel Pochtar sharing his story. And we'll hear more from him on next week's programme. The Olive Tree Reconciliation Fund is a Christian charity based in the UK that supports the needs of both Jewish believers and Arab or Palestinian Christians living in Israel and the wider Middle East. If you'd like to know more about our work through our bi-monthly newsletter, including news about our upcoming tours, please either visit our website www.olivetreefund.org or write to me, Julia Fisher, OTRF, PO Box 402, Billingshurst, RH14 4BQ in the UK. Meanwhile, join me at the same time next week for another story from the Olive Tree. Until then, goodbye.